Okay, let's cover a few notes about how a light sensor works. It's one of the best sensors, but it's a little bit complicated sometimes. So if you look at a light sensor, it's got two little thingy dingies in the front, and one's a red LED, just like a normal LED. The other one's a photodiode, which is basically a light detector. There are basically two modes the light sensor can work in. One's reflective mode and ambient mode. So in reflective mode, the red LED is on and it's emitting red light. And so that red light bounces off a surface and gets picked up. Those photons bounce off and get picked up by the light sensor, the detector. And so that's why it's called reflective mode, because these red photons bounce off objects. Of course, the closer an object is, the more the photons get bounced off. And also the brighter, meaning a white object reflects more red photons than a black object, for example. And so both distance and color actually make a difference for reflective mode. Dark objects reflect less, and faraway objects reflect less. In ambient mode means that the light sensor will be off, or the red LED will be turned off, and it's just collecting photons. So this would be ambient lighting conditions. And so there's nothing to be reflected. So it's just picking up how much light there is currently in the room, for example. So that's ambient mode. And of course, the light sensor is very sensitive to IR, infrared sources. So there are a lot of infrared sources around, like for example, fluorescent lights put off infrared sources. So it can detect things that your eyes can't see. So sometimes you'll get weird readings. That's because it's detecting IR infrared sources, even though you can't see them with your naked eye. Okay, so that's basically the kind of modes they work in the sources of lights it's sensitive to. And this photodiode, by the way, is the most sensitive to red. It's tuned to be most sensitive to red color spectrum. So that's why I use a red LED. Okay, so there are basically two ways this light sensor can work when it comes to LabVIEW. One is wait for brightness and darkness, which are absolute values we'll talk about in a second. So it's waiting for a certain threshold of brightness or darkness. Or it can be relative, which is wait for brighter and darker. We're going to cover each of these in a second here. Let's do the wait for brightness now. We'll do the next slide. We'll do wait for brighter. So wait for brightness is waiting for a certain given specified threshold. In this case, I've specified 65. So let's imagine that this is my robot, what it will see as it drives around as a function of time. So the light sensor can read 0, which is completely black, and 100, which is completely bright. And that's the range it goes 0 to 100. And let's say that this is what it will see as a function of time as my robot drives around. So the threshold here is 65, because that's what's set here. So 65, 65, that's where it comes from. And so the program waits. And so it waits and waits and waits and waits and waits and waits until it reaches that threshold. Then the program, once it reaches 65, the program will continue on to the next function, whatever icon I've put here. So maybe I'm driving around at the beginning, wait and wait and wait. It doesn't do anything. The program is stuck here at this icon until this threshold is reached. Once it reaches that threshold, then the program continues. So that's the way wait for brightness works. And the wait for darkness works similar, except it's waiting for a low value. Now, wait for brighter is a little bit different. So wait for brighter comes along and says, I'm waiting for a brighter by 10, for example. And this is going to say that it's a relative thing. So when this icon is first reached in the program, so let's say I turn motor on over here someplace, and this wait for occurs, this program is going to take a reading, and then it's going to add 10 to that reading and wait for it to get to that level. So as an example here, let's say the default is 5, but I'm using 10. Let's say I'm driving around, and this wait for lighter command is reached. Okay, so the value here is something around 25, let's say. Now this thing is taking a reading, says, the current light value is 25. I'm going to add 10 to that, so I'm going to wait for 35. Right? I'm going to wait until it reaches 35. So then I wait and wait and wait and wait. And once it's reached 35, then the next command is executed. So again, when this icon is executed, the first thing this icon does is take a light sensor reading. It says, what is the current reading? In this case, it was 25. And I'm going to add to it 10, or whatever I specify. In this case, so I'll add 25 plus 10 is 35. And that's what I'm going to wait for. So you're not specifying the exact value I'm waiting for. You're looking for a change in light sensor reading of whatever you specify, in this case 10. So think of wait for brighter or wait for darker as waiting for a change in the light sensor value to either increase for brighter or decrease for darker. And then you specify how much you're looking for that change. And the default is 5. So again, the wait for brightness waits for a specific light sensor value. So you're setting the threshold 65. And then for brighter, I'm waiting for a change in light sensor reading. And the same is true for darkness and darker. Those are the two common, those are the other ones when you're waiting for something dark or waiting for something to get darker.